Well, Corey, we've oh shit. I just said reached.
Yeah.
That's great. We're not starting
there. Don't you
there.
take that out. That's great.
Right. I know. Okay. Well, it's in. We're good. We have reached the finale of our Best of Horror by Corey. And then 4-part by that, and then me making us do Event Horizon for this week.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's
more
not
like
really your choice.
Hey, here's 4 out of 4 star, 4 movies, and then my co-host really thought it was a good movie, and I was like, all right, dude, I'll give it a second whirl. You know what? Like, you've now convinced me that I may have been wrong the first time, but you know what? I watched it again.
Yep.
And outside of the cool, like, techno opening, man, that movie is fucking a hot pile of garbage from the get-go.
I hope I can sway you a little bit, because while it does hold a certain nostalgia for me, just because of the age I was when it came out, and I guess part of us has to kind of put ourselves in 97.
Well, yeah, like, that's true. Like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not knocking the movie because I'm some jackass from the future, and I was like, oh, hey, let me go check out a 1997 movie and go, what the fuck are they talking about? No, it's just, like, it's a hard movie, especially given the cast that's in it. Like, it's got a really solid cast, and
super solid.
It kind of does this cool dark horror and, like, Doom vibe. I mean, that it's what it is. It's like, hey, we're gonna just take fucking Doom and not call it Doom and make a movie about it. The only difference is we're not gonna call right. We're not gonna call it a Hellgate. We're gonna call it like a fucking time portal or whatever, gravity drive or whatever.
It's a warp. It's
whatever the fuck
drive,
they called it. But really, it was just you turning on Doom and like going around the corner, and then there was one of those pentagrams written on the fucking ground. And you're like, huh, what's that? And then boom, demon appears. Like, they stole Doom, like, first and foremost. Just by that spaceship going to hell, like, through the way it did, like, Doom is a huge influence in this movie. Has to be. Even the way the ship and things are made to look, it has a Doom vibe to it.
I understand. I know where you're going, and so let's let everybody know where they found us. So you found the Two Dads Review podcast. My name's Clay. Corey's the one who's bitching about Event Horizon already. We do a little podcast here, talk movies, talk TV shows. This is the 5th part of our horror series we did just for the 5 weeks until next week is when American Horror Story Apocalypse starts, and we will be doing our review every week of the episode of that week. So starting next week, you will get American Horror Story Apocalypse Episode 1, our recap and review. And we did... early, our podcast is a little over a year old, and we did American Horror Story Cult last year, very early on in our podcast life. And speaking of hot piles of garbage, I have high hopes that this season of American Horror Story goes better. They actually released a trailer today that I haven't watched yet. Should we pause this and watch the actual trailer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
good. Is it good?
But I mean,
I have to look at it.
Every ad campaign for American Horror Story, even the trailers for every season are fucking top notch. Like, if you based the seasons off the trailers, like, you'd be like, dude, they've just been fucking 10 out of 10 the whole goddamn time. Like, no one has ever said anything wrong ever about this TV show. And the last season was just, it was just too
haphazard
trash.
trash.
Like, it was just, it felt like it was rushed. And you know, it's hard because American Horror Story's been so good for so long. Like, even if you didn't like Asylum or a couple of the others, like, they had their own, like, fucking in-crew with it. Like, I mean, outside of the, like, the things that American Horror Story retweets about last season, at no point have I ever heard anybody go, that's my favorite season. Like, yeah, last season, exactly. Everyone was like, that shit was deep. It was crazy. It was political as fuck. Don't get me wrong. Like, and the worst part is every actor acted really well. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like it was bad acting. It just, the story and through the whole crazy, weird fucking cult plot, I was like, none of this seems worthwhile
believable
for me, you know?
Parts.
Yeah. But I think this one is like Eminem's new album. Like, everyone was like, oh, Revival's, you know, fucking shit. And then he comes all hot and bothered and guns a-blazing here in Kamikaze. It's just like, all right, well, I'm just going to talk shit about everybody. And I think that's like where American Horror Story's at, like television-wise. We've been so good for so long that they're still on this like massive pedestal. So probably last season, you know what? If that would have been the first season or the second season, everyone would have been like, this is a fucking crazy show. Holy shit. Like completely taken back. But it's what, season 6 or season 7 or something like that. And then to come out with that after all the other like crazy stuff you've done and reviving actors and actresses' careers with the show and like bringing in these like super awesome new talents that will go out and do other side projects that are equally as amazing. And you're like, that's what you guys got us? Nah, I just don't. It's not where I'm at with it, you know?
Right.
But it still got great ratings and there was still a whole herd of people that loved it.
True.
But you and I personally shat on that whole fucking season. Like
we tried so hard. And don't get us wrong. Listen, we are American Horror Story. We are franchise fans. We love a lot of the seasons. And we tried really hard last year to like to understand where they were going, and it just never got there. There was potential. They just never got to it.
Yeah, it was like just watching an engine rev. And you're like, man, that thing sounds really nice. I wonder if that car goes fast. You know, you just
That's
wait.
good. That's well put.
Just fucking waiting for it. You know,
they need to fucking figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
So
they even got writers down there.
Yeah, right. So we are doing that for the next, I don't know, 10 to 13 weeks. I don't know how many episodes are going to be this season. It kind of varies. I was looking back when I was making the title cards for this coming American Horror Story. I'm like, do I make 10? Do I make 13? I'm going to make 13, and I'll probably have too many, and that's fine. So that's our next few weeks. But the best thing about this little series we've done here is that it's kind of sparked our interest in some of our other favorite movies. So when there's ever any breaks in TV shows that we're reviewing, we will we'll go back, we'll harken back to some of our favorite movies from our 30 plus years on Earth and ones before then. Because let me tell you, do you know what I got to go see this week? I went to the Alamo Draft House because I love that place and wish they would give us money to talk about them, but they don't. But I'll still talk about them. And I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey in 4K laser projected, revamped, and it was great. It was amazing. It was cool to be in a theater with, and that shit is loud. Like they've got it just, I would love to have seen it 50 years ago.
Why would you want to see it 50 years ago with the way that you just viewed it is probably the best possible way ever to watch that movie.
Yeah, I
like even if like you want to go by real date ranges, still this is the best way to watch that movie. Like all you have to do is go, well, it's not really like about the future. It's like kind of like if they took a gamble in the past and maybe that's what the future turned out to be, right? Like you just got to kind of shift the narrative a little bit, not this whole like, oh, we're really in space. Kind of like, ooh, we fucked up. I would love this weird thing happen.
I would love to be a fly on the wall 50 years ago with the way I know, or the way that you kind of think of people in the 60s and when this came out, like 68, it still works. Like the movie still works 50 years from when it first premiered. Like it still works. Like just because the dates are past, I don't care. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could see people getting hung up on that aspect, like rolling into the theater. But
oh no,
that film, it's just title. Like it doesn't. And if you can look past a couple like things that blatantly just look old, right? You know, you're still like, this is a movie about the fucking future and space and like, wow, like it's shebang shabow from every aspect. But it's slower than fuck.
Oh, there are absolutely horrendously long, just let's watch this thing happen for like 15 minutes. And it's okay. Like, especially just I guess 2001 is almost an experience as opposed to like a movie, really. Because you have a lot of things that are long and drawn out. But then I sit back and I go, this is 50 years ago, and he accomplished this with no CGI, none of the stuff that directors have today, and It looks amazing. It still looks amazing. You can see where everybody who made science fiction past that date stole tons of shit from him, whether it be actual images of things or how he shot things in space. Like anything in space, you can literally go, oh, yeah, I can see where they got that from. Like stuff from Star Wars, all kinds of stuff. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a movie that's root system has just taken off into everything.
Yeah, I mean, in Kubrick, you can't beat Kubrick, and it's
I think it's also one of those movies though, and like, yes, it's Kubrick, and yes, it's like a fucking really great film, but like once you get off the dick of 2001 for a minute, it's still one of those films though that it's just good. Like, even though it's slow, like you can't just go watch it. Like, you have to be in the right frame of not mind, but just kind of like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm in for the long haul. Like, but if you're like, dude, I really want to go watch, I don't know, a lot of fire and something maybe breaking, you're not going to appreciate that movie. But if you're like, I want to go check out a film like this and just ignoring like already that it is what it is, like, it's a good fucking movie.
You have to, it's like, how do I want to put this? It's a movie that I've revisited since I first learned of it in my teens, probably every 5 to 10 years. And this may be the first time that I fully got everything that I watched. And I'm 38. Like, you know, if you don't, number one, if you're not sitting in a room completely paying attention to everything you're watching, you're not going to get it all. Like, it's going to go past you. Like, you're going to miss a certain aspect of it that's kind of important, and then they're going to reference that back to it later on, and you're going to be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, well, I also feel like those types of movies are depending on your age. And I mean, I guess it's with a lot of things. It's like remembering your grandparents' house as being this like massive mansion or something, and then you go back to it when you're like 20 and hadn't been there in 15 years, and you're like, what? This fucking thing's tiny, man. Like, what the hell? Like, you know, I don't even fucking know. I lost it.
It's 2001, man. It's what every person who goes in to watch that movie, wherever they are, whether it be at home or in a theater or any of that kind of stuff, every single person will take something else different away from that movie.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And I was just trying to explain, like, it's also one of those that the older you get, the more, like, some of the more nuanced things that, like, the feeling of isolation and like emptiness that kind of comes with this vibe of being in space and shit like that. Like, you don't pick up any of that stuff when your candle's still fucking burning bright and you're like, dude, I could go jump off that big cliff because I'm 20. I got all these fucking years ahead of me. But you watch that shit a little later in life and you're like, I don't like the way that makes me feel now.
Yep.
Like it does. You're right. Like, that movie will go with you through your years, and each time will be a unique experience.
Yes. Yes. You'll take something away. You watch it in your teens, in your early 20s, in your late 20s, in your 30s. It will all give you a different experience. Mostly the beginning ones will be, I don't know what the fuck I just watched, all the way to like, oh, that's real deep, and I got to look into that, and I need to like think back on what happened. And, you know, it's one of those endings. It's kind of ambiguous where you're like, what actually happened? Like, what did you do? And it's never explained, like, what actually happened. So it's kind of cool. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I'd never seen it in the theaters, of course. Alamo does that a lot. They bring back old movies. October, they're doing Carrie on the big screen. So, I mean, that would be cool as shit to see.
Nice.
You know, the original one. They're doing all kinds of... They do that all the time. So, anyways... yeah, if you didn't find us over at twodadsreview.com, you can always look at us there. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. All the places you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications because the podcast never comes out the same day during the week. It's always different. One a week, but never the same day. So, that being said, speaking of space movies, it's not really fair to talk about 2001 before you talk about Event Horizon. That's just not fair.
I mean... If we're going to go, like, legitimacy of things that happen in space, then yeah, like, they're not even in the same fucking ballpark.
No, they're not. It's not
but
like
the fact that these movies are their own unique animal in itself. Like it's an apples to oranges comparison. Like outside of spaceships, people in space, and the whole
ship trying to kill you,
production taking place in space. That's right. Really all they got in fucking common.
True.
There's no other.
Not even trying to argue against that. My goal here is to bring you. If you're at like a 1 or 2 star for this right now, my goal at the end of this podcast is to bring you to like a 4, maybe a 5 star for this, because I know you're not going to like it.
Out of 10 or out of 5?
Out of 10. Out of 10. I know I'm not going to get you to it.
Like
I'm not going
to get 5. I was like, get the fuck out of here. We'll just stop this goddamn podcast right now, man. Like, it's just.
I'm not.
Figure it out.
This is a guilty pleasure of mine. I remember it from when I was 17 when it came out. I'm not even sure I don't even know when I saw it first. I probably wasn't when I was 17 because I may have seen this in theaters. I don't know. I just remember some of it being disturbing. And you're a kid, you're a teenager. You're like, ooh, that was bloody and gross and cool. And
oh yeah, like don't get me wrong. Like the fucked up shit in the movie's fucked up.
Yeah,
like it doesn't even look bad, really.
He did. Paul. Okay, so 97. This is Paul W.S. Anderson before he went with the W.S. in his name. But we're talking, he had just come off of Mortal Kombat. He just come off of directing Mortal Kombat. And they pretty much gave him carte blanche of like, you can do whatever you want to. And he's like, I don't want to do PG-13. Like, I want to go hard R. I want to explore some shit. And I'm going to find something that's gritty and nasty. And he pulled this Philip Eisner script out, and they tweaked it because I think the original script, they said it was supposed to be aliens because it's space. If it's space, it's going to be aliens. And he changed it to this other, hell dimension type thing that they went into as opposed to putting aliens into it, because then you're just pretty much remaking the movie Alien. Really?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I mean, like, you could still have aliens be scary.
True, but we've seen scary aliens, and I think he was originally from the get-go trying to do not your standard space movie, which I have to give him credit for.
I'm just saying, if you're getting, like, to me, this is a pet peeve of mine. Okay. I fucking hate this, man. Outside of maybe, what the fuck was that movie called? Stigmata.
Okay.
Because she gets kind of fucked up looking in it, right? But
it's a good movie.
I hate the people possession thing, like to be the end all be all, right? Like The Exorcist is cool because that's more of like a real life thing vibe to it. Like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on with my kid and weird shit. This is supposed to be, a brand new discovery, and the doctor's a big fish hook, fucking bringing people out to it. But I just feel like if you're gonna say you went to hell, you better be bringing some Hellraiser-esque fucking monsters with you. Like, it's hell, man. If I'm in the far reaches of fucking space and some captain guy of mine like loses his eyeballs or has got some scratches across his face and looks really fucked up, that's it. He looks really fucked up. Like, I know he wanted to try to get the whole human element of darkness to it, but it never was accomplished. Like, if you're going to bring hell into it, give me some demons. Like, give me if you're going to do a human person, make them extremely menacing, extremely like maniacal, hunting-esque, I don't know, but not like blind and in a fucking wheelchair with a nail gun.
Okay, did you need and I understand what you're saying, and I honestly, while I love Sam Neill, everybody knows who Sam Neill is, Jurassic Park. Let's just go down the lineup of this movie real quick because I took the time to so Lawrence Fishburne, Matrix, Othello, I literally wrote fucking everything. He's been in everything. We know who he is. Oscar not one. I know. He's had an Oscar nomination. He's had a Golden Globe nomination. Sam Neill, Jurassic Park, a shit ton of other stuff. 3-time Golden Globe nominee. Kathleen Quinlan, she's an Oscar nominee as well. She was on Apollo 13. She was in Hills Have Eyes. She's been in a whole shit ton of stuff. Jolie Richardson, 2-time Golden Globe nominee. She's in The Patriot and a shit ton of other things. Richard T. Jones, great comic relief. The dude, like, one of my favorite characters of the movie because he's actually like halfway just like I like the guy that I like the funny guy. Like he's just good. And he's not only funny, but he actually knows his shit in this movie.
Is this the black dude?
Yes.
Okay. Like I couldn't remember his rank in it, so I was like, I gotta just refer to him as the black guy because he's
he was.
Because at first I thought you were gonna say Baby Bear was comedic relief, and I was like,
no.
What movie you were watching? That motherfucker didn't have any funny lines.
No, that's the next guy. Jack Noseworthy is the guy who is Baby Bear. He was in Idle Hands, Breakdown, U571. You see him, you go, oh yeah, that guy who's been in a bunch of
you would recognize him through a lot of early 90s movies, and he's got one of those like faces and builds where you can see how he got into acting. Because you're like, all right, dude, I bet you can take some clean headshots.
Right.
Or something. But he's also, like, has the features of what appear to be many other famous people all on kind of like one face in different strategic areas. And I know this is just his genetics, man, but, like, it almost makes him hard to look at.
His mouth bothers me.
Right? Like, because something is, he's either, like, too symmetrical in like, a squarish kind of way, or I just look at him and like he's doing a Rorschach on me the whole fucking time because his goddamn face looks like everybody else, but not right.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's always fucking bothered me.
He does. Which makes what happens to him throughout the movie like even worse. Like I already don't want to look at you, and now all this weird shit, all this bad shit's happening. I'm like, boy, this really sucks. And like way down the list, Jason Isaacs from a show that we reviewed already, Star Trek Discovery. He's in that show. He plays Lucius Malfoy in all the Harry Potters that he's in. He was also in The Patriot. He was in Armageddon. I mean, it's frickin' Jason Isaacs. And Sean Pertwee, who didn't have as much movies as I thought he was in, but like you look at him and you go, oh yeah, that guy who's been in a whole bunch of things I've seen. Like I recognize him. He was the engineer guy, the bald guy.
Yeah. But I think he's more of one of those guys that kind of did like indie films a little bit more. Like you'll it's weird because you'll know him from something and you'll go, God damn it, I don't know exactly what it is. And then maybe Equilibrium or something like that'll pop into your mind and you'll go, okay.
Right.
That's the cult film that I caught him in. Like, cause that's that's the actor he is. Like he's in really good movies, but they're movies that aren't for everybody.
He's like a poor man's Jason Statham.
You think?
I don't know. Maybe it's just he has that same look and he's British and he's got and he's just kind of, instead of going big, he kind of stayed low key. I don't know. I just kind of got a feeling for that. And so you have this cast, and not only do you have this cast and a director who, we're talking Mortal Kombat, Soldier, Resident Evil. You know, we get going into like Alien vs. Predator, which is like meh, and you have like Pompeii, which was like, I mean, it was, some of the stuff's been not the greatest, but Paul W.S. Anderson in his heyday was like, could do no wrong.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I just don't understand how we got like open reigns after like making Mortal Kombat.
Well, Mortal Kombat was like the first video game thing that like in the movie blew up and it was great and everybody loved it. And I don't remember being that great, but it did do well enough for them to let him have full reigns. But the problem with the production, so this is one
I don't know, but I say this shit all the time too, because there'll be like fucking directors and we'll pull up stuff they've done and I'm like, I don't know, man. I guess that's why these people get paid money, because I looked at what you did, and yes, maybe the film didn't come out that great, but someone behind the scenes was like, bet you if I gave him some actual quality, that guy would fucking put it together. Like, that's what makes like recruits for sports and shit like so pertinent, because everyone's like, dude, that kid's really fucking fast, blah, 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 blah. But like a scout will look at him and go, yeah, he's fast in a straight line, but I don't need him to run in a straight line. Like he's getting chased. I want to know how fast he can cut,
right,
and shit like that. Like what to look for, So I don't know. Like a lot of these directors either know some people and bent over, I guess, in the Hollywood way that may or may not happen, or they're genuinely talented and someone somewhere was like, yeah, dude, I just got to give that guy some help. Like he's fucking golden. Well,
yeah, I mean, and you're right. Paul Anderson has a checkered past. I mean, the Resident Evil movies, you have to admit, those have grossed plenty of money and made him his name.
Oh yeah, I mean, I like the Resident Evil movies. I think that's a hard, like, I mean, Marvel and DC have got a good way of kind of taking the comic narratives and making them what they are. The best way
movie form.
You know, the best way they possibly can. And it's always been this way. And I mean, I'm even guilty of it with Walking Dead. Like, as soon as Walking Dead differed, because I was still so invested in the comic.
Right.
You know, I've said this before. I was like, I can't watch the TV show. And, like, people just don't get, like, even with Mortal Kombat, like, how the fuck are you really going to translate that game? Right? Like, yes, there was a story, but it's just some loosely thrown together shit just so they can get the guys where they need to be to kill each other. Like, that's the whole principle of the fucking game. And then, you know, like, eventually a story from other readers and writers and fans and shit, and it all, like, they're like, oh shit, like, we got a universe, you know? But like, this direct comparison from comics to movies or video games to movies, it's like, dude, it just doesn't exist. Like, you got to understand that. Like, there's no way you can just take those panels and go, make it a movie. Can't do that. It's not real.
Yeah, but I would argue he successfully did it with Resident Evil and still was able to bring in the elements of the game that caught the people who played the game, but still had enough external stuff that if you didn't play the game, you still liked them for what they were.
Yeah, and that was what I liked about Resident Evil. Like, it took the general idea and some of the main players that feature throughout the backbone of Resident Evil, but it was in its own unique thing. Like, it was made in such a way that you went, hey, that's a good nod to the video games, but it's different. And I'm cool with that. It's like it's the ones that you know that they tried to make like panel for panel or whatever, and it just comes out bad, but the fans always want panel for panel. And it's like, well, now you just threw fuel on that fire because you knew goddamn well that it is not possible being a filmmaker to do that, but you tried anyways, you jackass.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So this is another one of those. So Event Horizon is one of those movies that was a victim of behind the scenes, not internal to the director and the cast and the crew, but to the company producing it. So before they'd even had all the cast hired, they'd already announced the release date of the movie because they were trying to get it out before Titanic. Because they knew once Titanic hit, like, no, there's no point in releasing a movie for 6 months. You know what I mean? They're like, so we got to get this out. So Paul Anderson already had this deadline, and then he was doing all this model work, and, you know, it was just insane what he did. I mean, some of those shots, the initial shot when we first meet Sam Neill's character, Dr. Weir, that whole shot where he's like eating breakfast and he opens the window and it's like a jump scare because it's loud. And they do that pullback. That whole thing, once you pull back and you see that he's on a space station, like, that was all scale modeled. And they actually did like 2 versions of it because they did his, then they overlaid his into a small one, and then they had like a larger one, and then they had a smaller one, and they had to weave them together. And it would took like a 60-foot track just to get the whole pullback because it pulled back for so long. Like, it was insane and that took I think I read somewhere that it took like a third of the special effects budget just for that one shot. I was like, okay. I was like, you want to go that way? That's cool. But, I mean, we're talking a $60 million budget. And you're right, it didn't do anything in the box office. It made like $26.7 million. But, you know, it's one of those ones that once it hit VHS and DVD, like, it had its cult following. Like, it grew its cult.
Like, I've had numerous people that I've gotten horror conversations with, or even like space movie conversations with, and someone always goes, dude, have you seen fucking Event Horizon? And it's either one of two things. Like, that was a cool space movie, scared me, or it's just, dude, that movie fucked with me. Like, I was not okay after that movie. And I'm like, what the fuck did you guys, like,
right?
Am I that dead inside already when I first watched this movie that I was like, no. And you almost have to be naive to horror to find this movie scary, I feel like.
Yeah, watching it this time, I was not as impressed as I remember being when I've watched it before. It has its nostalgia things, but it's not as scary as it could be. It has some good elements. I feel like, well, okay, for one, we know that the original cut that Paul Anderson put out was 130 minutes long. Okay, and it didn't test well because they were on such a time crunch. They didn't have they didn't have a whole lot of the special effects done. The track wasn't put in right. Things weren't edited right because they were rushing for people to see it, in the test audiences, and people weren't getting it. So they cut 30 minutes out of the movie. And I know there was extended portions of the hell scenes that they had shot that were pulled and cut down to more of the flashes that we saw in the final cut of the movie. But there's no way that it was 30 minutes of that. So I feel like what we lost was probably a whole lot of character development that we just didn't get. And so watching it this time, I was like, I don't connect with anybody. I like Sam Neill, but Sam Neill is not a bad guy. Like, he's not. They should have digitally altered, at least at the very end, digitally altered his voice to make him sound more menacing, because it's still just the guy from Jurassic Park yelling at you.
Yeah, there's one time at the very end of the movie when he's like talking and kind of says the final word, and his voice is altered. But like, you're right. If that dude is going to be the bad guy, don't get me wrong, man. Like, if I saw Sam Neill scratched up and don't get me wrong, this isn't scratches like a cat got a hold of you. This is
right. He gouged his eyes out.
Like whiplash, like like whip lacerations, like when he's all cut up as the final product, of whatever his transformation was. Like, I wouldn't fuck with that. But then if it started talking, I'd also go, not sure how scared I am right now. Like, I kind of feel like I have a fighter's chance in this now because you sound normal.
Right.
So like, you just sound like Carl that got in a fight with the Wolverine. not a satanic presence that's just terrified looking.
Right. Exactly. And so there was that. There's, I mean, the people just, the actors, what we saw of them on screen and the overarching plot, I don't hate that. Like, I enjoy the idea. Like, it's something different space-wise. It's not aliens. He was trying to tell a story that was just a little bit different than what we were used to seeing. The actors all believed it. I mean, you talk about people who talk about one of their favorite movies to work on and be in. That list of actors that I named off, a lot of them harken back to this movie. I mean, Paul Anderson was saying in an interview that he went to like a con a couple years after, like in '99, and fucking Lawrence Fishburne was there, like in his like Air Force, like in his jumpsuit, like from the movie. Like he was like nice. He was like wearing it because he was like, I love working for that. I love that movie. It was a great movie. They all enjoyed their performance. Jason Isaacs talked for hours, and Jason Isaacs is a very opinionated person, especially nowadays. If you ever follow if you want a good laugh, go on his Twitter, because that dude is nuts on Twitter. And so for him to sit, and it looked like it probably was. It was probably the special edition Blu-ray, so it probably was 10 years ago, but it's not like it was right after the movie was made, so he wasn't like doing this because he had to by contract. Like, he was speaking lovingly about the movie and the cast and the making of and all that stuff. Like, he enjoyed it immensely, and the opportunities that it gave him, because he was a little fresh faced in that movie. Like, he was young Jason Isaacs in that movie.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It's sad that there wasn't whatever was lost in that cut. And the problem is like, it's not ever going to be found. Like, they found some of the cut footage in a salt mine in some third world country. I don't know. I don't know how it got there, but like, it was all ruined. I don't know who stored it in a salt mine, but that's where it was. Like, they found like because Paramount or whoever didn't keep the cut, like the original cut. So you'll never get a director's cut of Event Horizon, never. It's why it's never been released. And part of that is his own fault and Paul Anderson's own fault in his naivete when it comes to how young he was and how Hollywood works, because the Directors Guild allows every director who does a movie, they get 10 weeks to do their director's cut. Like, after the theatrical cut's done, you get 10 weeks. Now, you're able to waive that 10 weeks if you need to do some reshoots or, second crew shots, things like that. You can wave and cut into your time. So by the time he got done, because Paul Anderson also did the secondary crew who was doing like the filming of like the hell scenes and shit like that. Like that was after they wrapped filming. Like he was overseeing that as well. So he directed the second crew as well. And he cut into his 10-week time with that. And by the time he got done with all that and then editing, he had like 4 weeks left for director's cut. And they were literally mixing music the night before it was released. Like it was released. I mean, it's crazy how it even got to theaters because they were doing things up until the last second. So for it to be as haphazardly, especially as the post-production shit works, for it to even be a working movie is amazing. So
yeah, I hate that I always say, "Don't get me wrong." I don't understand why like my mouth and my brain fucking default to that every time. It's like, don't get me wrong, but let me interject and tell you my personalized specific opinion about this. But yeah, it's super cool that with all the shit against the movie, it got made, and it's really cool that the cast had a lot of fun making the film. And they all, honestly, apparently, like, really enjoyed that film and each other and stuff. So that's really cool that there's that whole camaraderie to it. And it's even cool that the director's cut footage was cut short and then hidden in some third world country for some odd reason. Like that, you could probably make a movie about that in itself. Like how the fuck that film ended up over there or wherever it ended up.
Right.
Right? But I'm going to just be a total dick about it. All of that is only cool and important if the movie ended up being good. Like, all of that stuff, like, to it is like, man, that again kind of is almost just like the movie. I really wanted that stuff to be awesome, amazing, and save the day, but it doesn't. And, like, the movie itself, you wanted it. Like, I know why people found it scary because there are some disturbing scenes in the film that are rated R shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why that gets people, but the movie just never comes together. And it's almost like even when you don't like it, you can still see it for what it could have been. And it almost infuriates you like even more. And now the fact that you've told me all this other tremendous shit that they went through and how they all fucking love each other, I even more now want to go, why? Why did it come out the way it just fucking did then? Like, God damn it. Like, it's almost as if everything inside the movie perfectly aligned for those people to meet because that was their moment for them to interact and then like absorb each other's little magic powers and then branch out into their own and bring us all this other wonderful stuff. Like that was their meeting moment. Like this film had to have happened, but for their magic to come together, something had to have been sacrificed, soul for a soul, and the film was it. And they're like, sorry, man, we gotta fucking let it go.
Right. Yeah, considering the careers that it sparked after this and how successful almost every single person has like been since this movie, you're right. It's kind of like the focal point, like we're all gonna come together and it's all gonna be great from here, but not right now.
Yeah, like the movie was the fucking, sacrifice. Like it's like, we're all gonna bite this one, man, but don't worry, it's gonna work out, and people are gonna look at this fondly.
Yeah, and it's what's even worse than that is that how much Paul Anderson put into this before they've even started shooting. Like nothing you saw on there was haphazard. Like they based, like you're about to get into it earlier, but they based, you know what they based that ship off of? Because let's not pretend there's not plenty of religious nuances in this movie, all over this movie.
Oh, yeah.
So the ship, do you know what the ship was based off of?
No.
The Castle Notre Dame. Like, it's if you take the castle and they said so that you take the pill, like the some of the stanchions and turn them on its side, that's how you get the engine wings on the back at the very far back. And inside they had, in the medical bay, there were like actual like pillars that kind of looked like the pillars inside of the church, and a lot of the stuff was set up very symmetrical, and there was like stained glass style windows they weren't stained glass, they were like futuristic stained glass, but that's what they really were, what they ended up being. Just everything, all the work that was put into the world, like to that ship. And you're right, and we get this, which really bugs me.
Yeah, and like the ship looks cool, the atmosphere's cool. I mean, even looking past some of the 97 like CGI stuff, like it's still cool.
Right.
You know,
the CGI is very, I think it was used sparingly enough that yes, the floating shit is absolutely CGI. Like we all know that.
Yeah. But if I saw that in 97, I would have been like, wow. Right. That's fucking cool. So your brain still appreciates it. I'm talking scenes where like it's Lawrence Fishburne through like, I don't know, I guess it was like maybe a hangar of some sorts, but it's like super long.
The middle area.
And he's standing there like one of the terminals, and you could it's just a repeated infinite hallway, and you're like, you could have put a wall at the end, man. Like that thing does not, like we saw the outside of the ship. Like I know that it ends. Mm-hmm. And like little shit like that. And like one of the other things that got me really bad was one of the explosions. Like the flame clearly was going faster than anybody could have been running from where they were, no matter where they were on that track. And I was like, that guy's fucking good as dead. Nah, he makes it. And then the fire turns into like a beam, and then like goes shooting through the hole. It's
because it's supernatural fire, man. It's hellfire.
Yeah, like that's when somebody goes, all right, man, I'm combining science and mysticism, magic. I don't know, and it's like just, it can do whatever the fuck it wants.
That's right.
And little things like that in the movie are just laced throughout this movie, and it just fucks it up. It's like, can't do that, man.
Yeah, but
you can't do shit like that to me and expect me to go, ooh, I'm in it with you.
Oh man, but you gotta love the meat grinder. You gotta love how that thing looked. That the ramp, the walkway to the main core.
Yeah, like fucking cool, man. Like the metal aesthetic in this weird, like,
it's gothic, really.
Yeah,
the churches.
But it's also designed like what are those things called where you put down the piece of paper and there's like a frame, and then you put the circled like graph piece in it with a pen, and you start moving it all around, and it makes all those crazy like fucking shapes and stuff. Like that kind of design, like fractal design, was like in the walls of the metal built throughout this space. Like, it looks fucking cool, man. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff in this movie where you go, that's really sweet. And then the movie itself makes you go, fuck you, man. Like, why? Why?
Right. I wish I could disagree with you when it came to the talking part of the movie. Like, everything else, like, you're right. The look, the environment, the nuance, everything they did for you to look at, especially in 97, looks and holds up to today, minus a little bit of CG, but he used it so sparingly that it didn't really hurt it. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't so much CG that you were like...
It's not like the CG's through the whole movie and you're like, okay, dude, like, I get it. It was 97. Fuck. You know, you're like, all right, I know that was CG, but I appreciate, because I also know that this movie's older, I appreciate the way you used it. Mm-hmm. Well done. That's how I would have used it at that time, too.
Right. Not like Spawn.
I don't know, man. I like Spawn.
Oh, Jesus. So much CGI. In a time where you should not be using that much CGI.
Yeah, but when they weren't using CGI, man, like Spawn's makeup shit, it's fucking on point.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Practical effects always win over. Always win over. And I love how, like, these days... I don't know. I see what directors did. Like I just talked about 2001, so we're talking 50 years ago. We're looking at something from 97, so 21 years ago. You know, with still hardly anything computer-wise that could do anything that great for you. And now these days, you got these people who just have these giant budgets and still churn out shit. I mean, there's plenty of. This is not the worst movie ever made. I'll put it that way.
No, not at all. And I mean, CGI really is. I mean, obviously, it's going to be based on the team you have. But let's just say big budget teams are usually the best people in the business, right? Like, it's very rare that all of a sudden some minor team just gets picked up to go fucking do shadowing for Captain America or whatever, right?
Right.
It's really the director's fucking fault. Like, and the other 4 or 5 people that sit there and watch that like stuff, and we'll go back to, I think it's The Hobbit, like one of like Legolas' scenes where he's running on the breaking bridge, and when directors go, I just don't give a fuck about gravity. That's cool. Like we're just throwing gravity out the window right now. And that's when CGI just doesn't matter what CGI motion you're doing. Like when you don't give a fuck about like a natural thing that would happen in that, it ruins it. Like even when like you see a guy go flying out of a car and you can tell like instantly just by like the way he hit the ground, you go, bodies don't do that. Right. Like, or when they do the cool, like, yes, your body does twist that way, but you also don't have the strength of a gorilla. You're not going to be able to pull yourself up one-handed bit around the bar spinning at that speed. Like, you know, especially when it's not a superhero that's doing it. You're like,
right.
What the fuck are you giving me, man?
Well, I want to argue that Legolas he was probably kind of like a superhero. So there may have been some things that were
Yeah, but even if you watch that scene, like the physical body motion that they have to like render him in to make him hit the stones that they wanted to make him, it's like he just became Gumby real quick to like make it where he needed to go. And you just have to go, is that scene, is that part
that necessary?
That necessary. Like you have to be able to look at it as a director, or have like your best friend who's the guy that like tells you to go fuck yourself 99% of the time, but he's the one that is the guy that will tell you to go fuck yourself over your shoulder going, go fuck yourself, dude. Get that scene out of here. And you going, yeah, all right, you're right. Like, I loved it, but you're right, man. Like, okay, like if you hate it, you're probably right. Like, that needs to happen.
True. So yeah, it's, I don't know. I wish I had better things to say about it. The plot itself is, it could be, it's
funny because this like summary you got is like fucking 12 paragraphs, and I feel like we could explain the plot of the movie in like 2.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's really, this I pulled off IMDb under their synopsis, and this person that wrote it really, really, really likes this movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I know we always have something like this pulled up that we'll reference to and stuff like that, and it's funny. You're right. Like, you can tell when someone was really into it, or they're like really knowledgeable on like the advanced subject, like, right? Like, you know, algebra, but they're the guy that does trig, and they try to write something, and you're like, fuck, you're too smart. Like, you've put too much shit into this. Like, God damn, I really wish you would have wrote a report for me in college, but this is too much detail. Like, why did you give me so much detail?
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, this synopsis we have here could possibly be longer than all the words in the script.
It might be.
It might be the whole script, but it's not. So, well, let's just talk about some aspects of the movie. We don't have to walk through.
Yeah, let's start with the who. We'll start with the who. So, like, give the kind of the rundown, and then we'll get to the why and when, because those kind of apply at the same time.
Perfect. Start it off. Who?
All right, so what do we got? We got basically a doctor and a group of Marines.
A group of salvage experts. They're not
military. Really?
I'm not even sure if they're military. They're more just...
I always just assume because of aliens that everybody's just a space marine. Like, it's all... If you look military-esque, I'm like, space marine.
Yeah, they're a salvage vessel. Their job is like, we go out, wreck ships, we go get shit, we bring it back.
Okay, yeah, well, I knew they were doing that for this, but I didn't realize. I honestly thought the crew was like a military crew, but basically, which is, geez, I'm not even going to remember their names. So we have like what, Dr.
Weir.
Weir?
Yes.
Where? How do we pronounce that?
Weir.
That's Mr. Sam Neill's character. He's the doc. He's explaining to everybody what's going on, and they all just woke up from
grav couch, grav chamber. It's where you go so the ship can go fast and you don't.
Yeah, they were like in some kind of hyper sleep chamber thing, you know?
Right.
And which, speaking of that, I love when the doctor comes out, like he falls to the ground, and clearly like everyone's trying to help him, and all he can go is, I'm fine. Like, how much fucking pride do you have, dude? Like, just let them help you up.
Right?
God damn.
It's your first time. Give it a break, man.
Yeah, and then we have Lawrence Fishburne. He's the captain.
Yep, Captain Miller.
Who else do we got here?
You have Jolie Richardson as the first officer. Her name is...
I don't know her name because you didn't. Holly Grant? Is she Holly?
Yeah, she's Grant. No, she's Stark. Why did I say Grant? Grant needs to get it in here. She's Stark.
I don't know why I said Grant. Yeah, she's Stark.
Then you have Kathleen Quinlan's character, who is Peters. She's one of the medical folks. Jason Isaacs is the trauma. I like when they introduce each other. I love their introduction. It's the standard. There is a lot of this. It's like they do a nice, quick introduction, and like Lawrence Fishburne's like, and that's DJ, and he's like, hi, DJ Trauma. And everybody like laughs at him. So you have like the normal med, and then you have like the guy who's like the surgeon, who's like, I'm here when shit goes real wrong.
Yeah, when you need to cut something, I got you. But basically, it's the crew getting the introduction, and then you get the doctor fucking rambling for a little bit, and then you get Mr. Lawrence Fishburne going, hey, real quick, I'm going to interject. We were all supposed to be on some very special, well-earned vacation time, and all of a sudden, me and my crew get yanked the fuck back out, and we're out here on space. So,
well, and don't forget, it's the standard where the government didn't tell you shit. Just go put these coordinates in, get in your little friggin' grav sleep chambers, and we'll tell you about it when we get there.
Yeah, so of course they all like they wake up and they realize that they're, as I think Mr. Fishburne, like a million clicks away from like the nearest outpost.
They're out by what, Jupiter or Neptune? I was watching,
I think
Neptune because 2001 on Space Odyssey is Jupiter.
Yeah. I think they make like a kind of like, hey, we're gonna go throw out how deep in space we are, like moment, because they're like, oh, we're passing Neptune or some shit like that, you know. And so you get an idea that they're way the fuck out there in space,
right?
So the doctor tries to like explain what's going on, and that's when you get
what's even better.
Well, that's when you get who is he? Do you not have him up here? Oh, who? Richard T. Jones, right?
Right.
Like, you get him coming in being what I feel is every Marine person, like former military guy, like in Hollywood, because he comes in with, whoa, slow the fuck down, in layman's terms, what the fuck do you mean? Like, why the hell are we way the fuck out here? Like that guy, like the guy that's just gonna jump the gun on almost everything, and then he's really smarter than he is, because obviously he's on a fucking spaceship, but he still likes to go, no, you dumb that shit down. I want that explained to me in the easiest fucking way possible. Like, don't sugarcoat it with words or use words that don't need to be used. Like very, hey man, I've been doing stuff while people have shot at me, so just save me the filler and give me the information I need.
Right. And even some of the best reactions are when Dr. Weir first announces what they're going after, because he says, we're going after the event horizon. They're like, fuck. Like what? Like because the whole world has been told that it's the worst space disaster in history, and all 19 crew and the ship were lost 7 years ago. So the whole world thinks it's gone. So they're like, we flew out here for something that we think is completely destroyed. And then the doctor's like, well, okay, so NSA said this is what we can tell you now. It wasn't destroyed. And then he goes in to explain the ship. And I love, I like what you mentioned about Cooper, how that deep down inside, he's smarter than he's letting on to be. Because even like the grungy engineer guy, Smith, Sean Pertwee's character, like when Weir starts to explain the gravity drive and how they were trying to go faster than light, he's like, well, you can't do that. He's like, the law of relativity, or was it law of relativity? Is that what he said?
Don't know.
Is relativity? We're not that smart, but he's like, you can't actually do that. And then they got into the whole explanation of how they're not really going faster than light. They're just creating a singularity between two places in space, which for as like tech heavy as this conversation, or like as smart heavy as this conversation initially could have been for the in the movie, and it could have gone way over everybody's head. They do a nice way of dumbing it down, like with the piece of paper and the hole in the pen.
Yeah, dude, I don't care what anybody says, man. Like, when you go talking about warping space, taking a flat piece of paper and waving it up on someone and then showing them how, if you warp time and space, like if you can physically somehow generate enough power to move those atoms in this way, and you punch that hole through it, and all of a sudden it clicks in someone's mind of how fast, because they'll instantly go, well, what if I could do that from school to home? And they'll realize how long that distance is, and then they'll immediately click how short it could be. To me, that is one of the single best, hey, I'm a really smart person, I'm going to show you something cool, simple ways to fucking do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, I've seen a couple, like, astrophysicists, like, giving lectures, and they're still like, this is my favorite way to fucking do it, you know? And it's like,
thanks,
that's
Event
awesome.
Horizon.
Like, yeah.
But the best part about this is not only does it, this one scene where they're all sitting around getting this briefing, it does a lot of things for the movie. It introduces every character. It tells you what you're going after. It gives you the general idea of what happened and how much or how little everybody knows. And then it also explains each character's, like, where they are mentally, like you were talking about, like their intelligence level, what they do. You have the guy who wants everything, just dumb it down for me so I know what's up, because I'm a very, like, do it, I'm done type of guy. You have the guy who's the engineer, who's already, his focus is on, I'm sorry, you can't, I drive ships for a living, you can't go faster than light. And you have that guy, and you have the captain, how much control he has over his crew. You have, the relationship between, or not relationship between Cooper and the second in command, because he definitely has a crush on her, and there's a little bit of back and forth between them, like romantic wise, that may be brewing type thing. So, and then you have like Baby Bear, like you see how young and new he is from just his one answer. Like, I think he only has one line. He says, like, he's the one that answers the question that the doctor asks, what's the shortest distance between 2 points? And he goes straight line. Everybody laughs at him because it's like, no shit. And so you see his character, and then you see, like,
yeah, he's the guy. I mean, he's definitely in the newbie, but like, how do we explain this? Okay, I got a good one.
Okay.
So when I was in high school, I used to work on a framing crew for houses. And
Right.
I was basically a day laborer. They were just like, go clean that, take that big pile of wood, pick it up, go put it over there so it's there when we get to it, like it needed for us, right? And then after you kind of do all the shit work, they start to come around to you. So you also kind of realize that they're just not assholes, but you had to earn your keep a little bit, especially given where I've coming from my whole life. Like, I mean, one of my nicknames was Spoon, and, silver spoon in your mouth. Like, shit just fucking works out for me. Like, I'm not, like, of all the bad luck I tend to have, that boat still somehow keeps moving fucking forward, man. So, like, I'm a pretty lucky dude in a sense. But, like, the vibe you get from him is that he's still there, and he just finally is, like, connected with one of them. Like, he's still the dude that gets shit from the other guys, but he's got one on his side. Like, I remember when I found the first guy that, like, offered me Gatorade, like, when he was away from the other guys, it was like, hey, man, I know it's probably hot. And you're like, okay, I got fucking one on me. But they're also the group that'll tell you to, like, hold a sledgehammer straight up in the air after they held it in the middle of the sledgehammer and touched it to their nose and moved it back. So you're like a young kid going, oh, well, if they did it, I can do it. And they tell you to hold the sledgehammer from the bottom. So all of a sudden, that thing's got way more physical force at the top of it than it did when they did it. And fucking you go to touch your nose with it, and your wrist can't support all that weight. That sledgehammer comes bashing you in the fucking face. But at that moment in time, you're so pissed off. But you also realize, you're like, I'm fucking in. I made it. Like, these guys genuinely like me. They picked on me so hard that I'm fucking in. And you can tell that this guy, like, after this vacation of them getting back, it would have been like them buying him drinks and like, yay, man, thanks for dealing with all of our shit, blah, blah, blah. But he never gets
there. Right.
He just gets to the point of like, I had, like, almost like I made my family, and then it gets taken away from him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so, yeah, he's definitely that character. And then you also see the med tech, like, she's like the mom. to a lot of folks. Like she gives everybody kind of like the mom voice for whatever's going on, whoever she's talking to.
Yeah, like, I mean, there was a scene where she's like, no more ball in the house.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
And while she's watching video of her child who's back home, you know, and then you come to find out through her conversation with the captain that he's like, hey, I really tried to get you off of this. I couldn't pull any strings. I'm really sorry. And she's like, it's no big deal, you know, and then you find out that she's split in a relationship as well, and their child's with the father.
Right. And then she's like, I'll take him for Christmas.
Like, yeah, like, they're like, oh, we just switched the seasons, basically. So you can see how, like, long this fucking trip was and, like, a real out-of-the-way inconvenience.
Yeah, 56 days just to get to it. Just the trip out there is 56 days.
Yeah.
In stasis or whatever. But yeah, so while we're going to gripe about the movie some, they do at some point either in the editing or, you know, in the script itself, we don't know because we don't know the full script of it. I'd like to actually see the full script. But this is one of those things where they're going to drop you in this relation. They're going to drop you in this family and you're just going to go with it. You know, with this conversation, they do, I believe, succeed in explaining everybody's personality in this one conversation and how everyone's going to behave and act the rest of the movie. I don't think anybody is played wrong in this with this opening scene.
No, they're not. But also everyone in this, and you can tell, I mean, now that you've told me that it was like rushed, every character is almost too clean cut to that specific type of character. Like,
there's no diversion. You're right.
Yeah, like it almost makes it unbelievable a little bit because you're like, oh, you're just that guy. Like, you know, like whatever character that person is called in Hollywood, like that's
true.
I could take you out and drop you in any other film at this point in time.
True, and there isn't a single person, I don't think, in the whole crew that grows past what they are. The captain, even though his big arc is, and his overhanging thing is losing a crew member before, you know, in the past and he beats himself up for that. No person does anything that their character we initially meet shouldn't do. The mother, her demise at the end is because she's doing a mom thing. And she's, you know, the ones who survive, you know, Cooper is a, what does he say his job is? Because I think Lawrence Fishburne's like, and Coop, what is it that you do on the ship? But he's like he's the guy that just goes, he just does everything. He does anything and everything you need done on that ship. You know what I'm saying? So his whole survival, he's a survivor. He's like, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to make myself a spot and I'm going to be worth it and I'm going to survive in this family. And that's what he ends up doing by the end of the movie is, you know, he even gets thrown into space and still gets himself back to the ship.
Here I come, motherfuckers!
You know what I mean? So no one does anything outside of what the path of their initial introduction to their character would be. So I do understand what you're saying with that.
Yeah, like everybody has like a clear stovetop pipeline, whatever you want to call it, that they're in. Like you were saying, like even Lawrence Fishburne, like it's just the captain going down with the ship, kind
exactly.
of thing. Like,
of course, he's the one that does it.
Yeah, like you're like, no shit, you're the captain. Like it wasn't a surprise there, right? And then even when you find out like the things within the ship that scare the crew members, or like when they all start to click and realize, like, nah, man, I didn't see what they saw, but I did see something that would fall into the same category, like type shit.
Right. What scares me?
Yeah, like the mother, like her biggest fear was her child and their, I don't know, polioed legs or whatever that was. Like, it just wasn't creative enough.
I'll agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. There isn't any. Yeah, there's no variation to the story, to the characters.
It was like, we know this works for these type of characters, so like that's just we're gonna try to, I guess, put our own spin on that. But some of that stuff's so tried and true, it's almost better just to do a good job at that. Not saying that they did a bad job at it, but it's like, why even try to change it, right?
Right.
It works the way it is, and it's one of those things that, when you fuck with it, you either better be doing it really unique and really well, because then everybody else is going to go, no. We know where definition of this move is, and you guys aren't near it. Like, you got to fix that shit.
Right. Yeah. So what happens next? Weir plays them the tape, the recording that they received, the transmission they received for the Event Horizon when it finally reappeared. At which point, if I was the captain, I'm like, oh, no. We're going to go. Everybody get back in the graph couches. We're going to fuck back home because I ain't going anywhere near a ship that makes those goddamn noises.
Yeah, man, like, it bothers me that this movie fucking puts me in silent rage, like, every time I go to talk about it.
Silent rage does not work for podcasts.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Not at all. It's, God damn it, man. Like, everything about this movie just, it doesn't click. Like, it's like having two pieces that almost work, but when you watch them spin, like, or you're watching tires down the road and you can just look at someone's, like, rear tire and you go, that's flat. Like, that's not round, man. Like, it shouldn't look that way moving at that speed. Like, it just is not right. And everything about this movie falls that way.
Well, and I've always made fun of this since I first ever saw this movie, is that this recording and the Latin that Jason Isaacs character that DJ hears and translates, I always laugh that if they had just taken the time to run it through some filters, you would have gotten the whole phrase up front and then been like, we don't need to go near this ship. Just blow it up and we'll leave. You know
I
what I mean?
I also like how I'll run it through some filters was the standard lingo back then for, like, what we would call Photoshop and video editing software. It like because that's their answer. They're like, I'll just throw some filters on it. This isn't fucking Instagram, man. Like, you're not gonna take a picture and just go like sepia and there's a new picture. Like,
right.
That's not how this shit works.
Yeah, so he originally translates what he hears in the recording as liberate me, which is save me in Latin. So they're like, oh, well, let's go save the people, folks, and let's go on going on.
But even then, like, given all the extracurricular noise that was on that tape, because they're like, hey, we narrowed it down to one audio sample after we did our filter trick, and we got half a second of audio out of here, but no one else thought to, like, listen to those other filters and go, well, that's just not a natural sound that should ever be out here in space at any given time, no matter the circumstances. I don't care where we fucking are.
Right. It's not like they pulled that recording into a main base and then they didn't have a team of people, like, running it through its filters. You left it in that garbled mess for the crew of 10 people or 7 people or whatever it is to then, like, he runs it through some filters on his ship that he finally gets it down. Like, how did you not do that on Earth before you sent millions of dollars of ship and crew and time and resources out to this ship that just showed back up? Like, how did you not just take a few more days? Because literally, this movie only happens once they arrive at the Event Horizon and hear that recording. It only happens over hours. So you didn't just there wasn't anybody to take some time to run that filter, run all that stuff beforehand, before assigning this mission?
Yeah, and, like, I hate how you have to almost have really smart people be really stupid sometimes in horror movies just to get things going. Because you're right. No person in their right mind would have been like, I'm fucking hanging around for this.
Right.
Damn the paycheck. Like, they don't know those sounds. If you heard them outside of, hey, I know this is fake, arena, you would be fucking frozen. Mm-hmm. I would be frozen. Some really fucking tough people I know would be frozen because it's like, I can take a punch, but I don't know what the fuck that is.
Right.
Like, and it bothers me sometimes that, like, in movies, and it only happens in horror films, and maybe, like, a love story, like, you just happen to have that, like, serendipity moment. But, like, in horror films, all the time, all reason is just, like, thrown out the fucking window. And it's not even when it, like, calls for one of these, like, you know what, I'm just gonna be brave because I need to put it into this type thing. Like, the bad guys fuck with them long enough. It's just like, oh, middle of the film, 4 people have already been dead, but you know what? We're going to the haunted hospital where only lights flicker. And by the way, we know they have hanging corpses, and I heard there are 2 living vampires there. But Ted somehow made it to the middle. We got to go find Ted.
Right. Sorry, Ted.
Yeah,
in
fuck
the real
Ted,
world,
dude.
sorry,
Not
Ted.
going in there, man. Like, not happening. Like, dumb shit like that. Like, why are we going to hang the fuck out on this ship? But you're right. They all listen to it and go,
let's go save him.
okay, you know what? There's probably got to be some kind of science for here because we have still yet to find any human life. And I think that was their big thing right there. Is they're like, well, we've scanned the ship. Nothing's on here.
Right. We're getting
that
life
was
science,
that was
but
their
it's across
counter
the whole
argument
ship.
to what they just heard.
Right. Yeah, that was yeah. Especially when you scan it and there's nothing. You know,
That would bother me even worse. Like if I scanned a ship and there was nothing, and there's supposed to be 19 of something on there, right? You know, like anything that just comes back negative outside of like a pregnancy or like an STD test is terrifying. Like you're just not supposed to be in that realm.
Right. I mean, even this one, it was one of those where the whole ship was reading as a faint life sign. She was seeing it as like her instruments being screwed up, but the whole ship, we know the whole ship is alive. Like by the end of it, we know the ship is what's.
Yeah, well, and even when our fucking mad doctor starts like explaining that and all the other creepy shit that's happened, they're still like, no, it can't be alive. Like after a certain point of witnessing what you've witnessed and having multiple people witness, like you just got to start jumping on board that crazy train a little bit. Like, okay, well then how do we kill it? Like, what do we do? Because then the mad doctor would have instantly have been like, oh, well, we can't kill it. It wants us. Like, because he can't control what's going on. But because he was like, no, the ship's not alive. Like, the doctor doesn't have to delve anymore into, like, his offhanded comments that he's fucking made. Because he's really been dropping hints to you the whole goddamn time. Like, I can't tell if he was, like, trying to be a good guy, fighting the bad shit, like, that lured them out there, or what.
And that's one of the complaints I kept seeing online when I was reading about it, is that one of the failures in either the script or the way that his character, you can't ever tell from 1 minute to the next if he's good or if he's possessed or if it's just him and his pride. Like you could never definitively tell what part of him you're getting, and to the point where it was like a surprise which weird you're getting. It was just like, I don't fucking like, who is listening to this guy still? By the end of it, you're like, why are you still listening to him? When you literally have blatant proof of shit in front of you, and he's like, no, it can't be that way. I'm a doctor, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even from the first get-go, when Coop starts telling him the shit that he saw in there when they were pulling
Baby Bear out of the core.
Pulling Baby Bear out of the core. And, like, everybody was on the call when they extended the rope for him to go check like they knew he was going through the portal.
Yeah, because it went from 30 feet to 300 feet.
Yeah. And there was another living human being in there that said, this is what I saw. This is what happened. And the doctor just goes, no, that's impossible. And then you have like Coop arguing with him. And then the captain's like, all right, hey, look, calm down. The doctor says it couldn't happen, but I also believe you saw something happen. So you already have like the first kind of breach in not believing the doctor, which would have been cool if they would have ran with it.
Right.
Like kind of like left him at that vibe where when you go back and think about the movie, you go, oh man, they were really on edge about him the whole time. Like I didn't pick up on it, but now that I've recycled the conversations in my head, you're like, oh, nice. But he comes at you at so many different ways. Like you can't tell if he's just being the doc, like saying, no, there's just no way that could fucking happen. Or if like, it's like you said, like it's a pride thing. Like you can't tell it, like in that first scenario, whether he's just being a dick because he's like, I'm a doctor and I'm smarter than everybody. Or if he's genuinely like trying to say like, no, that couldn't happen. Like he just starts fucking arguing. And like his only counter to it is, that's impossible. That's impossible. You know, and even like Lawrence Fishburne goes, well, then explain to me something. Like, don't just say that that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and on top of just being prior to that, you also don't know if it's already the ship affecting him because, I mean, let's face it, this guy's having hallucinations about his wife and no eyeballs and all kinds of stuff while he's still on the space station.
Well, see, what I think is, and I think they alluded to this at the end when he was like, you know, you can't go anywhere the ship wants you, the ship wants me, it's been to places. Like, I think this was one of those things where Weir was actually there when all the shit went down. I'm not saying he was like the guy behind the booth, like pulling the plug, but I really think that he had already been on the ship. Whatever happened to him. And basically he was like this entity at this point, almost made from like a ship's memory, or the ship's keeping him alive and just kind of using him as like an anglerfish's little light. Like, hey, we're going to bring you out, because he keeps saying shit at the end of the movie that gives you this sense like he's been, and like, yeah, I know during the movie he goes there, but the way he talks is like, I've been there, I've been back, I'm going back. Like, it's driven him so insane that it's cool now, I guess. Like, I don't know if that's the part of him that's like possessed and is just supposed to be saying some like off the wall weird shit that all humans would be like, what? Fuck that! I'm not getting anywhere near that guy. Plus, you're all cut up.
So in the when there's the final standoff in the bridge where Cooper comes up, where Weir is in the chair with and well, let me back up a little bit. Lawrence Fishburne's looking for Stark. He has his like whatever sort of like nail gun, like futuristic nail gun he has.
Yeah, some kind of bolt gun. Yeah, that thing was fucking.
It was cool.
Shooting out some steady steel or metal of some sorts, man, and it was big. That's like that gun was like, you know, the being in the doctor's office and you're like looking at all the fucking needles they got on the table and you're going, don't grab that one. Don't grab that one. And that's the one they fucking grab and you go, oh, god damn it. Like, that's the type of shit that was shooting out of this gun. Like, you didn't want to get tagged by it. Like, a nail would scare you, but you know, unless it's like in the eye or like even the dome piece, like you could probably survive it. Right. Unless it just hits a really critical thing. Like, this thing would spear you and then take whatever limb it hit with it, right, leaving the rest of you there.
Yeah, it was a nice, impressive weapon, or at least something he was using for a weapon. But he's looking for Stark. She's wounded. He lays the gun down in the thing, and then he goes and grabs her and wakes her up. And then he goes to move her out and like reaches, and the gun's gone. And so he just starts moving. And then Weir is in the captain's chair, and he spins around. He has the gun on him, and they're, you know, they have their normal bad guy, good guy, you know, conversation, and Weir's all face is all tore up, his eyes are ripped out. Then Cooper is coming back from his like getting blown out into space and flying back, and he comes to the window, and Weir shoots the gun at him, decompressing the whole bridge. And then Weir gets sucked into space, like eyes torn out Weir. So later on in the core, when Lawrence Fishburne is fighting like full body naked Weir with all the stuff carved all over him and has his eyes back, do you think that was still Weir, or was that the ship was that something the ship created to the way the ship was was that the ship?
See, what I thought was that the original Weir we saw was kind of like, you ever watched like Dragon Ball Z?
Not my cup of tea, man. Sorry. I know of it, but I don't know enough for you to be describing.
Well, one of the things in Dragon Ball Z is there's always like forms, right? So like you could be clay, but at a certain point you would max out and you would have to change form. Mm-hmm. So like that's when you see them like going Super Saiyan and like their hair going gold and they're calling on this like other power. Right?
I do know that much.
Okay. So I think that the good guy Weir that we see, right, is the ship's iteration of like possessed Weir, where they just kind of like put on enough of the human stuff in there to convince everybody. But the thing we saw at the end was what the Doctor had turned into. So like the thing that got blasted out in space, I just think was like a meat puppet. Right. Like it didn't give a fuck. It was like, whatever. Okay. It was almost like you beat the boss and you thought you beat the game. You're like, fuck yeah. And then it was like, final boss. Dun, right. Dun, dun, dun. Like, and then like, so I think that the thing you see at the very end was the Doc going through the portal, going into hell, and then being possessed or transformed, whatever it did to him, into that.
Right.
And that other thing we saw was its little piece of bait that it sent out. So, like, I think the doc, because even though the doc is like, we're going to rescue the ship, we thought we lost it, you know, he wasn't on the ship when it was lost. But I think that the gate had already done what it needed it to do, kind of thing to him, at least. Like it at least lay its little song in his head to make him do other shit. Because I think that ship he sent out was him testing what the gate probably told him to do.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not explained, that's for sure.
It's not explained, and to me, that just seems cooler than the ship going, oh, my final form scarred Dr. Weir, right? Like, if you were gonna do that, like, if that was gonna be, if the original Doctor with no eyes is just the Doctor getting corrupted and then blown out in space, then the thing we should have seen should have just been a full-fledged demon.
Right.
Or something that didn't look like the Doctor who just got whipped a whole bunch. Right. Like, they should have thrown some fucking hardcore makeup on him and transformed him.
I'm with you on that. The poor guy even had like a 3 a.m. call for that makeup, that full body prosthetic that he was wearing that, you know.
It had a massive cock piece on it because I fucking freeze framed that shit. And like, you can tell it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those like Ken doll like things that goes over it. But I don't know how big those things are, man. But like the fucked up skin they put around like everything, dude. Like if you freeze frame that scene right, you're like, I'm not even sure how that dude's standing up because there's no fucking way that shit's comfortable. That's why he's not walking around a whole lot in this scene.
Yeah, no, it's a full body, you know, latex type thing, like top to bottom for him. He sat in a chair at 3 in the morning and wasn't done until 10 a.m. to start shooting with that shit on. I was like, man, that's crazy. But
that's just like, and like that again is another good example of this movie. Like, if he spent that much time in a chair and that's the makeup that they came up with of like deep cuts and all the way over his body, like, yes, I know that the steps to do that may require 7 or 8 hours. But you're telling me no one could have came up with something better to put on him for that 7 or 8 fucking hours? Like, that was what they were like, yeah, man. God damn, we're killing it with this. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah. It is a little bit of an anticlimactic ending because it doesn't really... everything's just kind of cookie cutter. You know, and you're right. The boss isn't that big of a deal. I mean, he throws Lawrence Fishburne around a lot, and then he gets, you know, to the detonator and separates the ship. So when the core activates and creates the black hole, it just sucks the back end to it. But boy, it had to separate that front end, and that thing had to go pretty far to get not sucked into that black hole as well. So I don't know. You're right. There's parts of it now that when I watched it, I was like, eh.
Well, like even, you know, like an example, like when Baby Bear dies, and it's the whole, because they make a big deal of this airlock scene with Lawrence Fishburne like coming back from working outside, and like
it is a fairly impressive scene though.
It is. It's a good scene, and like you can see like Baby Bear's all being spoken through.
Yeah, I do like when it flips from him doing his like monotone delivery to when the alarm goes off, and like you realize that like he's back and he doesn't know where he is.
Yeah, because like his first words are like, he's like,
"Where am I?" Hey.
Stop! Get it fucking open!
Hey, open the door.
I can't! The inner door won't open when the outside door's been triggered. It would decompress the entire ship.
Oh my god. Mama Bear, open the door.
And, you know, the locks have like reversed, and they're trying to stop basically the depressurization that is about to happen. And so Captain's like scrambling back to get to him from the outside.
By the way, which for just being on that ship for literally hours, he knows the outside of that ship really, really well.
My favorite part about that, like, I love that he jumps up the track to use it as like a swimming device through it. But the best part is when he comes to the end of it and he does like the convenient front flip where gravity kicks in just enough for him to like...
mag boots, baby. Magnetic boots.
Dude, the way he flipped from that thing, there's no way those mag boots are catching and pulling his ass back down. Either way, I'm just saying, it's funny how that flip worked out quite nicely for him.
It was, and he was very acrobatic and did it like it was no problem.
Yeah. Like, you could definitely just see, like, in your head of where the wires are for this whole sequence to happen. You're like, I know exactly probably how they did that. But
75-pound suits, by the way. I think it was 75 pounds.
They didn't look like they were easy to walk around in.
65 pounds, excuse me. And you could only be in them. Like, you couldn't, like, they were so heavy, like, just standing in them. A, you couldn't sit down. B, just standing around, like, would fatigue people. So they had to, like, build, like, racks for them to, like, lean themselves on to, like, rest in those things.
Take the weight off.
Yeah, and, like, Lawrence Fishburne, like, he was loving the wire work. But for some of those scenes, especially, like, the ones with when he saves Justin, they actually filmed it. So you're looking at it from the side, but the way it was filmed is they dropped Lawrence Fishburne down. So he was having to hang upside down to do that scene. So you can imagine all the prep and shit, and then like, it had to be grueling, but he did it, man.
But the thing that bothers me in that scene is they make such a big deal about him like getting sucked into space and then like having everything pressurized out of his body.
Right.
You know, they don't really save him because his eyes start bleeding and it all starts happening, right? But what gets me is at the end when they break the glass on like the main bridge and not a single one of them almost instantly starts fucking like, because they're screaming, you're hearing that, you're fucking like, they were alive for so long while that vacuum into space was happening that they shouldn't have been like, it is especially because the way they make Baby Bear's death so like, oh my god, he was barely out in space for like a split fucking second, and then you have this whole like hole being breached with the vacuum of space literally a mere 15 feet away, and they're like holding on to crates like
yeah,
like,
but they're also, it's also venting all the air from the giant ship, so it may take some time. But yes, it is a little bit drawn out for the ship to not be completely depressurized.
Yeah, I just feel like given where that was and the really big deal they made of it earlier, like you can't have a scene in a movie like that.
Yeah, but,
like,
the ending scene is more of like when you think of a space movie, when anything gets depressurized, that scene has been done 100 times. You can go to any space movie when they depressurize it, and you have like the rushing and things are flying out the window and people are holding on and they're on, you know, their feet are dangling, flopping behind them in the wind because they're being sucked out into space. You know, so it was more, I think, especially, and you mentioned it earlier on the podcast, that when you talk to people about this movie, they're like, oh man, that movie fucked me up. The scene with Justin is what fucked them up. Like watching someone slowly decompress.
It's a good scene. Like your Space Odyssey movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things that everybody always rants and raves about that movie is the accuracy of space filmed. Of like
silence.
They're just like, damn, dude, that's, if you moved like that in space or did this in space or this thing happened in space, that's how it would fucking happen. Like that's how accurate that movie is. And then you get to something like Event Horizon where they take this indoor, outdoor, into space little device, right? Your little chamber that you kind of chill out in before you go out. And they make it such a big fucking deal that he was literally in like the chamber before the doors even open when the decompression happens at like the 9-second mark, that he's like eyes are already exploded. And they're still, and like Fishburne is still outside the ship telling him, don't think about it. I think is like what he says.
He's like curl up into a ball and he says like,
and then, like tells him to curl in a ball and exhaust
huff
all
and
of
puff and blow all the air out of your lungs.
All the air out of him so he can catch him and put him in so he doesn't explode. But then you have the bridge scene, and like if the window would have got sucked up and blocked by whatever quicker than the way it did, I'd have been like, whatever. But this is like a fucking 8-minute scene, man. And like
it is.
They both should just blatantly be dead in that scene.
Right.
Like it and that's one of the things that like takes you out of the movie, because they literally tell you earlier in the film that like this is a really big deal, and then you get to the end of the movie and they go, this would look fucking cool, and they do it anyways. You know, you're like, you don't get the best of both worlds, man. You either take the cool ideas and say, nah, we're going to be real shaky with the science on this.
Mm-hmm.
Or you take the science and you go, we're going to run it throughout the whole film. Like, you can't pick and choose because it fucks your movie up.
Well, they did, and that's what we got. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so it doesn't stick all the way through with I'm with you. I don't feel like it sticks on its same path of what it wants to be. It can't quite determine what it wants to be as a movie. Is it sci-fi? Is it horror? Is it both? Are we going with horror rules? Are we going with science rules? It's kind of they pick and choose what they felt like for the scene, depending on the scene. Honestly,
no, they definitely did.
So
this movie just falls short for me, and it sucks because like we said, like it's got a cool atmosphere and it's got a cool ship and even the crew, being the cookie cutter versions of what their characters are supposed to be, without any of the actors kind of going, all right, I'm gonna dive a little deeper and make this guy feel a little more this way or that way. Like, you got good people in it, but you're right. Why the Doc ends up being the bad guy? Because Sam Neill ain't fucking scary. I don't care what you put him in.
Yeah.
Or just not to take the simple approach of, if you're gonna dehumanize a human being in a movie, like, yeah, right, change their fucking voice up then. Like, why does he still sound like Carl from next door? Right. Like if Joe's been to hell and Joe's come back to hell as an evil version of Joe shouldn't sound like the guy that I bought burgers with fucking last week.
Right.
But that's what this movie does to you the whole way through.
Yeah, and I as I was watching it, I was like, oh man, it's just not as good as I remember it being. I mean, other than the aesthetic and the design of the movie, of the sets and how everything looks, it's cookie cutter to a certain extent, but not even so cookie cutter that it tracks all the way through the movie. So I feel like people should see this movie. It had a cult following. It has a cult following now, but everybody who's 30, who's 40 or younger knows this movie and is like, and has memories of this movie. Mostly the scene with Baby Bear getting sucked into space. Like, that's what everybody really remembers when they say that movie fucked me up. That's what they talk about.
Oh yeah, that is like that. And maybe when like Sam Neill like turns for the first time and you see him with like no eyes, you're like, that's a little fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, so the deaths, the deaths are good. Jason Isaacs is flayed open, like has his chest cut open and he's flayed out in like a crucifix style, like above a table in the med bay. Yeah. You have the mom who takes that horrendous fall, and like when she lands, like those, like all the deaths are really like when it comes to like horror style deaths, they are all really good deaths. Most of them, the main like horror deaths, because I was like, Lawrence Fishburne, he doesn't even die. That guy just sacrifices himself and goes to hell. Like he is taking that ride on purpose. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I actually not sure if I ever put that together when I was younger and was like, oh shit, like he's not killing himself. He's just gonna go to hell.
Yeah, like if that portal is still going to where it's going, by him doing what he did, he was saying, well, I'm either gonna die here and be A-okay, or I'm getting sucked into that, and I guess we'll play it by ear.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's like, and I know I talk about it in such like a nonchalant way, but like that's a big fucking order.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like everybody, I feel like, has someone they'll jump on a grenade for. Like, whether it's your kids, your mother, like your best friend, like whatever. Like, everybody's got that one person where they're like, would I want to? No. But if I really fucking had to, man, you're the guy I'm doing it for. Like, I know Lawrence Fishburne liked his crew,
mm-hmm.
but this was still a dude who just realized what it is. Like, this really wasn't a him, like, going, hey, I'm going to make sure you guys make it out all right. This was all of them agreeing that they needed to stop whatever this ship was doing. Mm-hmm. And if we make it out, we make it out, but we all kind of accept that we're not.
Remember, the only reason he's in the core is because the ship stops him with the flame, the ghost image of the guy he had to leave behind and pretty much kill.
Yeah,
and
so the ship pretty much like tricks him into
he has to run that way from the
running
flame.
back. Yeah, like he has no choice. But even then, like everybody else took the idea of like, all right, we'll die for each other, right? Like Lawrence Fishburne was the dude though that had to also make the choice of, well, I'm going to go a little further down the rabbit hole than everybody because this is where we have to blow it up. He also had to have gone, there's a good chance I'm going through that fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that had to have crossed his mind. Like everybody else's biggest fear was, oh, we blow up or we get blasted into space. Like that's like, you know, like they knew they may die on the ship. They may not make it out. But he genuinely had to have that thought and the other burden thought right over his head going, are we going to fucking hell?
Right.
Like,
wouldn't it be nice if the one jump the ship made, that one went to some whatever hell dimension or timeline or whatever they went to, but like the next time when it jumped, it was like Unicorn Land, and it was like a nice
right,
place.
like you don't know how long the jumps are, so you're like, dude, I may have 600 years in hell, but next time this bitch jumps, I may be in the perfect place ever.
Right. It can't can't just be two. It can't just be the world we're in now and like hell dimension. There can be other dimensions. That's kind of like, it's kind of sheer of.
Well, that's the whole point. Like, right? Like, you know, if you're going to offer one dimension, then you're basically opening the floodgates that there are other dimensions. You know, it's like, I love when like people show like a picture of Earth and then they show like a picture of it in our solar system, and then it's like our galaxy, and then they show it like to other galaxies, and then like space, and then like by the time they have zoomed out to like most of what is known space, and you see all of the massive little lights, and yes, some are obviously gone. The lights just made it to us, but you really have to go, there's just no fucking way we're alone.
Right.
Like there's just too much shit out there that is so far away that there's got to be something. Like when they open that hell portal, well, you basically immediately open, well, there's an upstairs one then too. Because if you're going to say there's hell, then you have to automatically say there's the
paradise
alternative.
Right. A heaven, a paradise, something.
Yeah. And then even if you go, okay, well, this is just like a hell world. Okay. Well, that still doesn't change the fact that Unicorn World is probably out there too. And Free Liver Sundays planet, drink all you want's available too. No diabetes planet's available too. Like, you're just like, there's just saying that it's got to be there then. If you open one, they're all open. Like, you can't then write something that goes, well, it only goes here.
Right.
Well, that's not how fucking magic and science work, asshole. You gave me one you gave me one mythical place. I want the fucking others too. They're there.
Right. But yeah, part of me wants an expansion on this universe and this concept.
Like I would 100% agree with you. Like, okay, I'll take this movie for what it is and not really being a great movie,
a day
but
in the life
good movie, but a good movie that was a good enough seed.
Right.
Like, right, it was there enough, because like you could make a movie right now and have it be Lawrence Fishburne, I don't know,
20 years later,
20 years later in hell.
Yeah,
like
I would watch that shit.
On that ship, like, still figuring shit out. And then if everyone's like, oh my God, dude, he's been there forever. Well, time moves different in this planet. There you go. Problem solved. It's been fucking 5 minutes for him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and then pick up, like, where that was. And it doesn't even be, like, and the cool thing is, like, because it's hell, per se, or whatever, you could throw anybody in there. Like, fuck, you wanted to make it a comedy. You could throw a white dude in there that plays Lawrence Fishburne, and they're like, what happened? And they're like, oh, well, you're in hell, so now you're white. Like, that's just, you know, like, here's a personal fucking dig at your skin tone because you're in hell. Like, there's so many things that you could do with this now. Like, he could be fucking some demon slayer guy, or still the spacecraft dude, or like the guy that just freshly landed in hell and we got to see all the bullshit that he's got to now go through to survive. You know, like, it doesn't need to be tomorrow.
Right.
Like, that's the cool thing about, like, that idea of that.
Yeah. I would love to see what they could come up with. But yeah. So it's, you know, final thoughts of the movie. I was much more excited about it last week when you said we could watch it for the 5th part of this series. But now that I've watched it again and been through it, it'll always hold its little place in my heart, but it's not what my teenage and, you know, young 20s brain had told me it was. So
yeah, and it's weird for as many people as I've known.
Everybody under the age of 40 talks about this movie.
Yeah, and like I honestly don't think I personally have ran across someone that hasn't liked it. Like I've always been the guy that's like, fucking really, dude? Yeah. That's where we're going with this? Okay. All right. Let's hear it. Please tell me.
Yeah, I think through this conversation this evening, I think I enjoyed the cast. I enjoyed the simple story. I mean, it was a simple story. It was convoluted to a certain extent, and like you said, a lot of bad things had to happen exactly right for everything to end up the way it did.
Yeah, like you just had to have some like hardcore ignorance happen,
right? But
in this movie,
but in the end, it's an okay to good movie just for the sheer fact of who's in it. The performances are well done. Everybody is believable. Like the actors are believable, and you can tell that they can't. No one's phoning it in. One of the most emotional scenes for me is when the engineer is trying to dig through all of the debris, trying to find the bomb that's going to blow. Like you can tell that Sean Pertwee's character like loves his ship and loves everything about it. And when Lawrence Fishburne tells him, "You got to get off the ship," Weir's planning a bomb on it. He goes, "I just got it up and back and running again," or "I just got her up and running again." And so you've got Smith just digging through all of the stuff, and when he finally finds it and he flips it open and it's at 6 seconds countdown, and the look on his face of just he just starts crying. And it's not even because he's gonna die. I think it's more because his ship is it's the end of his ship. You know what I mean? I find that of all of the scenes, that one is the most emotional to me, I think. And you got a guy who's 9 names down the starring list, putting in a great performance. Everybody did great. It's a good movie. There's aspects of it that are infuriating.
It's a good crew. It's a good principle with a good set. It just falls short on the storytelling part of it. And it's almost not even that they really fuck the story up, because you're right. It's a simple story. I don't know if you expected more because of who's in it, or if just when you watch it, the piece that was made just doesn't hit the way it should.
Yeah,
the end result what ruins it.
Yeah, the end result doesn't end up helping the whole story. And knowing that there's 30 minutes on a cutting room floor somewhere, I want to believe that there's a complete story that we just didn't get to see, and they cut it down just to get it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're probably right.
Probably.
But like we both said, it's a good movie to build a storyline off of.
I'd like to see it. Honestly, and considering how not well it's been received, I would like to see this remade and done right with a decent budget and some, you could do a remake of this movie. You could reboot this movie and explain some things out, make it 2 hours, and probably and make it rated R, of course, and have a great little splatter film in space. Because I can't really name me another horror movie. Name me Amityville horror in space. It's name me a space horror movie in the past 20 years. Who even tried it?
Well, I mean, you would have Jason.
Jesus, don't say Jason X. Fuck that fucking movie.
Or whatever. There's that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could really think of one off the top of my head that is just, I don't know, everybody would know about it. You know what I'm saying? Because you could say, I could say space horror, and I could say the video game Deep Space.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically ramped up Resident Evil gameplay in space. There was atmospheric shit in that game where I'm playing with the headphones on in the dark, and I went, God damn it, I should have left the light on. I can't see anything with the glare. God damn it, this is not okay.
Right. But yeah, it's
one of my favorite scenes from Event Horizon, since we were talking about that, is the scene where they're running to get the extra oxygen.
Mm-hmm. The CO2 scrubbers.
Yeah. So they're running, and you can tell he has 2 lines in this the director probably was like, look, make sure every second or third one's shit. So like call it out and say it's fucking tap, right?
Right.
And then like the next one you grab, put in your little canister, and they're supposed to have 25 of these. But I love it because there's like one where he's like, oh, it's scrap, and like throws it. And at that moment, the lady hands him another one, and he calls that one shit too and throws it. And she's immediately got another one coming at him. And so he's like, oh, yeah, this is good. But she's already got the fourth one coming his way, probably thinking like another, oh, this is shit. And so he goes to like stuff it in the canister and realizes she's feeding him another one, even though he just said that this one was good. He just grabs it and throws it the fuck out the way and then grabs the next one she was handing it to him and shoves it in.
Right.
And I was like, that's just a dude going with the flow, man, like trying to keep the scene moving.
Yeah, that's you're absolutely right. I do remember that being it's there are certain parts that the tension is built decently, but it just kind of falls flat at the end. Mm-hmm. It never really
This is a movie that if you've watched it, and you're probably right, if you did say this movie got to you, it was the baby bear scene, mm-hmm. maybe the weird blood orgy video clips things that like happen, but that's if the eyeless like Sam gets you probably just shouldn't be watching horror films in general, or you're just a person that scares easily and just loves having the fucking bejeebus scared out of you. You're like, that's my thing, man. It doesn't take much and I fucking love it. Right? Like it's an infuriating movie, especially now that you and I have like talked about it and you know that this movie could have been really good. And there's people that are like, yeah, man, this movie fucking got me. But I was always on the, it just came up short, man. Like, this movie had a lot of potential, but it didn't. And it's from stuff like we were just talking about with the CO2 scrubbers. Like, even in that scene, like I guess time was so rushed, like you couldn't have cut that a little shorter or just said cut real quick, because like it's so blatant that if you're just paying attention to the story, you're like, well, you need 25. You just threw a fucking good one away, man. Like, these things are gold right now. And you're just like, oh, whatever. I got another one because she was handing you one too fast.
Right.
Yeah. Like if you're actually paying attention to the movie, there's stuff like that throughout it. And it just sucks you right out of it.
Yep. It's too bad. Oh, well, Event Horizon, you were good in my memory while it lasted.
Yeah, we should have watched Trick or Treat. Yeah, that was my fault because I couldn't honestly think of that until after I agreed to Event Horizon, and then like it popped in my head, and I was like, "Well, no going back now." Already gave the green light.
That's okay, because when American Horror Story is over, we'll have some time before Star Trek Discovery Season 2. We'll have time before the final season of Game of Thrones. So yeah, maybe we'll pick up. We'll definitely do some. I don't think we're going to go back to in theater movies for a while. I think we're going to hit some of our favorites. So we'll just keep doing favorites of ours as we go in between TV shows. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, that sounds cool to me, because honestly, I think I'm probably going to cancel my movie pass.
Yeah, yours is probably going to be gone pretty quick. I'm just using mine whenever I can. But yeah, and honestly, yeah, like our experience in the theaters, there's a lot of shit that's coming out in theaters right now. And if there's something good that comes out, when it comes out on Blu-ray, we'll review it, all right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I mean, even the movies, like the big ones that come out in the theaters, like, they come to Blu-ray so fast now. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just like, it's just, I might as well just wait, because, and especially now with like the weird shit that MoviePass does, like, you open the app and at 9 a.m., like everything's good. You're like, cool. Well, I'll be down by the theater, later. And then all of a sudden it's like afternoon and all the shit that was open is now just not available, or, fucking whatever. And it's like, I don't care if it's 3 movies per month or, fuck, dude, even if it was 1 free movie per month at the $10 I pay, it's still worth it, because it's cheaper than just buying a movie ticket. Right.
Right.
But I just want to go show up at the theater, go, here's my form of payment. This is the movie I want to see. And even if you tell me we're just not getting this movie, cool, man. Then just let me go to the theater at the time that's convenient for me to go to the theater. Don't make me get there at 9 a.m., purchase a ticket before you change shit, or have to buy a ticket for something that's good and then walk into the movie theater itself and go, give me a ticket for the movie I want to see. I accidentally bought the wrong shit. Like, don't make me think outside the fucking box with this. Like, I shouldn't have to think outside the box, especially when I'm getting emails from MoviePass that say, win MoviePass for a year free. If you can do that, you shouldn't, unless the actual movie studio is saying MoviePass will not work for our movies, there should be no restriction whatsoever on the 3 movies I can see at any given time.
Agreed, completely. And we have ranted, if you are a longtime listener, we have ranted about them numerous podcasts, because that's what we were using for when we were doing in theater movies. We were using MoviePass because it was great and it was cheap and it was something they could afford us. But hey, we got kids and wives and shit we have to, buy food for and keep lights on. I'm not gonna go to a $16 movie every week for a podcast. It's just a hobby. Sorry. So there are plenty of movies out there that aren't coming to theaters right this second that we can review and we can watch and we can have a good time talking about, even if it's a crap movie like Event Horizon. Damn it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we talked about that their business model is going to rely on people of what I'm turning into, because I haven't been to the movies since the last time you and I went to the movies.
Right.
And there just hasn't been anything, or let me correct that. There are things that I want to see, like The Meg, that I can't go see, or when the time works for me,
it's not available.
MoviePass tells me it's not fucking available. So, like, I'm turning into the guy that goes, well, I paid $10 for it because it's a good deal. But when I really think about it, I haven't fucking used it.
Yep.
And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that's just like giving them fucking money. And then like every 3 months, I'm like, oh, hey, I went to the movie and I used MoviePass. Good on me.
Yep. Oh, well. Well, thank you everybody who listened. I think that'll wrap it for Event Horizon and our rant on all things MoviePass and all the other stuff we talked about today. We thank you guys for hanging on, and we will catch you all next week. Probably later on in the week, probably, weekend time frame by the time I get it edited and we get sat down to record it for the episode 1 of American Horror Story Apocalypse. I'm excited. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, because that airs Wednesdays, right? Yeah, Wednesdays.
Yeah, it's Wednesdays. So we won't even get a chance to sit down till either we do a late recording right after it airs, or we do it on Thursday night, one of the two. So it'll be a later recording, but we will be there once a week for it, and we will let you guys know what we think about it like we always do. But until then, we will catch you guys next week.
Take it easy.